I spent 18 years training my stupid younger brother into the perfect bag-carrying assistant. I never expected that he was actually the one who had been switched at birth. On the day the paternity test results came out, I stared at the report and fell into silence. On the left was my fake younger brother with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, looking sunny and handsome. He was looking at me pitifully, like a silly dog afraid of being kicked out of the house. On the right was my real younger brother, thin and pale, shy and well-behaved. He was carefully sizing me up, worried that he wouldn't be accepted, like a delicate little white flower. After thinking for a long time, I stretched out my hands and patted their shoulders at the same time. Great, from now on, I have two bag-carrying assistants. I have suspected more than once that my younger brother is not our family's biological child. It's not for any other reason. Just because he is incredibly stupid. My father is a business prodigy who built his fortune from scratch. He has a sharp eye and his investment directions span various fields without a single failure. He is currently the director of our group. My mother is the eldest daughter of a scholarly family. She is proficient in playing the piano, chess, calligraphy, and painting, and can effortlessly compose poems and lyrics. She is currently a professor of classical Chinese poetry at Peking University. As for me, I have been the someone else's wonderful kid since I was a child. I have so many awards that I need to put them in a burlap bag. I skipped grades all the way and was specially admitted by several famous business schools abroad at an early age. Now I have completed my studies and am gradually taking over our family business, and my younger brother, at the age of 4, because the international kindergarten adopted bilingual teaching and he couldn't understand either language. The principal tactfully advised him to transfer schools. At the age of 7, due to his outstanding performance of ranking last in mathematics and second last in Chinese, my parents gave him joint tutoring, which almost became the fuse for their divorce. At the age of 10, when he discovered that Santa Claus wasn't real, he cried his heart out at home. So, as the culprit who told him the truth, I had to take a private plane and, braving the low temperature of -30 degrees Celsius, accompany him to Inner Mongolia to see the reindeer. There were also the incidents of losing his baby teeth at the age of 12 and being deceived at the age of 15. In short, every single one of these incidents made it hard to believe that the two of us were actually born to the same parents. For his sake, our family has held more than one family meeting. After several rounds of discussion, we all unanimously decided, forget it, there's no hope, just let it be. Maybe our family is destined to need a naive and sweet person to balance our IQs. Fortunately, my younger brother is not without his merits. After going through the rapidly developing puberty, he has an impressive height and a face like that of a celebrity. As long as he doesn't open his mouth to speak, taking him out is still very face-saving, and the taller he is, the more shopping bags he can carry. When I go shopping, taking him with me allows my friends and me to free our hands and shop easily. I like shopping. In my opinion, choosing a bag is no different from choosing a promising company. Both require clearly defining the needs, observing, evaluating, conducting on-site inspections, and finally making a choice. I like making choices, whether they are right or wrong. It's all very interesting. Buying everything is certainly simple, but it will also result in losing a lot of the fun. My younger brother doesn't understand this, but he is always on call. The reason is simple. He has been my shadow since he was a child. It's quite amazing to say, if anyone is compared with others since childhood, they will more or less develop some negative emotions such as inferiority complex or jealousy. But my younger brother is different. His logic is like this: I can't compare to my sister, but you can't compare to my sister either, and you don't have such an excellent sister as I do, so you are not as good as me. I still can't find any flaws in this argument, just like that. With this magical logic, he has been full of confidence since childhood and has grown into a sunny and cheerful big boy, and also my bag-carrying assistant. So, how did I find out that he was the one who had been switched at birth? It all started from the day before yesterday when I went shopping. I called my little sisters and took my assistant younger brother with me. We went to the shopping mall and started a hearty spree of buying. As the number of shopping bags in my younger brother's hands increased, this shopping activity was gradually coming to an end. When we passed a doll specialty store, the butter bear in a doll costume at the door waved at us. My friend thought it was cute and asked me to help take a photo. That's when the accident happened. After taking the photo, the bear swayed twice and suddenly fell to the ground. The dull headgear rolled off, revealing a side face wet with sweat. It was a young-looking guy with delicate features, his eyes closed tightly, his lips very thin, and his skin showing an abnormal paleness. My heart suddenly skipped a beat, a strange sense of familiarity welled up for no reason. Without thinking, I quickly commanded, "Kevin, take off his doll costume. Hurry up," and I directly called to contact a private ambulance. Kevin, that is, my younger brother, immediately stepped forward and squatted down to unzip the costume and take off the bulky doll outfit. As he was taking it off, he said, "Sis, he seems to have heatstroke." Hearing this, I rummaged through my bag, took out a wet tissue, and stuck it on the guy's forehead. Some people, including customers and staff, gradually gathered around. We all worked together to carry the guy to the sofa in the store. The store was in chaos, and the most excited one was the store manager, who kept cursing and complaining loudly. "I'm really fed up. I knew I shouldn't have hired him out of pity." A grown man fainted from the heat after wearing a doll costume for a few hours. "I don't know which young master he is from. I'm afraid he's here to blackmail me on purpose." I glanced at him and asked, "How much do you pay him a day?" The store manager's voice lowered a bit, and he mumbled, 70. Kevin was so angry that he laughed and couldn't help rolling his eyes. "People know this is a shopping plaza. If they didn't know, they'd think it's a slave market. If I give you $70, would you do it?" "You're just taking advantage of his youth and his ignorance of the normal price. If it were someone else, they'd definitely spit on you a few times." The store manager suddenly looked guilty and didn't dare to say anything in response to his scolding. When I thought it was almost enough, I stopped him and said, "Kevin, that's enough." I looked up casually and pointed to one of the blind box shelves and said, "Wrap up all the things on this shelf for me." The store manager looked at me in shock and didn't move for a moment. I said indifferently, "It's not easy for everyone. There's no need to make things difficult for each other. Remember to pay him his salary for today." After hearing this, the store manager nodded frantically and said with a beaming smile, "Okay, I'll pay. Don't worry, I'll definitely give him a big red envelope. Then, I'll really pack them for you." He carefully confirmed. I nodded indifferently. "Yeah, go ahead and pack them." Somewhere I didn't see, the guy's eyelashes trembled slightly. The ambulance arrived soon, and the accompanying medical staff were obviously much more professional. They steadily carried the person onto the vehicle and started a series of examinations and treatments. I wanted to get on the ambulance, but my younger brother grabbed me. He looked at me in confusion and asked, "Sis, why are you being so enthusiastic today?" Before I could speak, he suddenly knocked his head and looked like he had just understood something. I saw him sneakily come up to my ear and whispered, "Sis, do you have a crush on him? Let me tell you." As soon as I saw him, I also felt a strange sense of closeness. He stroked his chin and sighed. Maybe this is what they call being on the same wavelength. Without even looking up, I directly slapped the back of his head. "I think your head is really round." I pulled him onto the ambulance and sat next to him beside the stretcher. Then, in his shocked eyes, I reached out and plucked 2 strands of the guy's hair. "Wait, sis, what are you doing?" I calmly put the hair away and finally bothered to remind him. "Don't you see that he looks a lot like Mom when she was young?" Kevin looked down at the guy, then looked up at me, and his eyes gradually turned terrified. He swallowed hard and said in a trembling voice, "You mean, our mom?" Before he could say something astonishing, I stepped on his foot with the heel of my shoe. "Kevin, ouch." My parents were in a love marriage, although both of them have a rather cold personality and are usually busy with their own things. It's obvious to everyone that they have a very good relationship. My father often spends a fortune at auctions to buy calligraphy, paintings, and ancient books to please my mother. My mother often cooks nourishing medicinal meals and quietly brings them to my father when he works overtime. So much so that I never thought that there could be a problem between the two of them. The correct way to deal with a problem is to solve it. I immediately asked my assistant to look up the life information of this guy, just in case. I also collected the hair of my younger brother, my father, my mother, and myself, and sent them all for an urgent paternity test. My younger brother has a personality that can't keep a secret. As soon as he finished dinner and got home, he came to my study, pacing back and forth like an old man, talking to himself. "Kevin, do you think he could be our younger brother who was abducted?" Me, "Impossible. I remember things from a very early age." "Kevin, then someone must have stolen Mom's genes for illegal research." Me, "Technology hasn't developed to that extent yet." "Kevin, I know, he is the real young master who was switched at birth." Me, "Read fewer novels." "Kevin, sis." His voice turned flattering. He walked behind me and massaged my shoulders. just tell me, otherwise I won't be able to sleep tonight. I was flipping through the documents and finally opened my mouth to give a more reasonable speculation. I guess he's an illegitimate child born to one of Mom's relatives. In my younger brother's view, what I say as a guess is usually the truth, so that's how it is. You scared me. He let out a sigh of relief and satisfaction and went back to his room yawning. Okay, now I can go to sleep peacefully. After he left, I continued to deal with the documents as usual and didn't take this matter too seriously at all. Although I was indeed a bit impulsive at first, after careful analysis, I knew, he looks like my mother, is younger, is thin, and has no money. Combining these conditions, it's obvious that he's an illegitimate child who isn't very favored. I just don't know which family he belongs to. Forget it, anyway. It doesn't have much to do with me. Early the next morning, I received the information about that guy. His name is Lucas. He is this year's top scorer in science in Province A and is currently studying in the Department of Chemistry at Peking University. No, something is a bit strange. Why would a student from Peking University take a part-time job that pays $70 a day? I was flipping through the information and my brows gradually furrowed. Just then, the results of the paternity test also came. I directly turned to the results, and there were several lines of words clearly written on it. It is excluded that there is a blood relationship between Kevin and Kathy. It is supported that there is a blood relationship between Lucas and Kathy. Oh, it turns out he's from our family. I turned the information and the report over and over again and looked at them several times. After seeing that the hospital where he was born was the same one where my younger brother was born, I finally had to admit that my younger brother seems to have really been switched at birth. As for whether it was an accident or man-made, more information is needed. The door was knocked casually twice, and my younger brother pushed the door open and came in. Sis, what are you busy with? The nanny Judy is calling you to go downstairs for dinner. I quickly closed the documents and said in a steady voice, yeah, I'll go down now. Just then, my phone suddenly started vibrating. I answered it and saw that it was a call from the hospital. Hello? Is this Miss Sarah? The patient you sent over yesterday has almost recovered, but there was an obvious commotion on the other end of the phone. I frowned and asked, what's going on over there? The patient's mother is here and is making a scene, insisting that the hospital is trying to cheat money. What do you think? I'll pay the bill. You calm her down first and don't let her leave. I'll be there right away. Ah, okay. Then I'll communicate with her again. I hung up the phone, grabbed my computer and the information, hurried downstairs, and directly got into the car. Uncle Bob, go to K Private General Hospital. The car started quickly, and a familiar voice came from behind me. The hospital? What happened to that guy from yesterday? I suddenly turned my head and only then realized that Kevin was sitting in the back of the car. I rarely felt a headache and asked, why did you get in the car? After all, we saved him together, of course. I want to go and see how he is, Kevin asked with great interest. Have you found out, which family does he belong to? I paused for a moment and didn't know how to start. In the end, I just waved my hand and perfunctorily said, it's still not clear, let's ask him when we get there. When Kevin and I rushed to the door of the ward, we happened to see a curly-haired woman standing with one hand on her hip, cursing at the person on the hospital bed. Good for you, Lucas, you really have the nerve. I told you to go work, but you actually dared to come here and pretend to be sick. And what about paying for the medical bills in advance? Go and ask. Is there such a stupid person in the world? I feed you and clothe you every day, and here you are, teaming up with the nurse to deceive me. As she spoke, she suddenly reached out to rummage through Lucas's clothes. You must have hidden money again on your own. Hand it over to me quickly. Lucas listened silently, not refuting a single word. Only the knuckles of his hands gripping the bed sheet were extremely pale. Whether it was a coincidence or not, he suddenly looked up towards the door and met my gaze. They were a pair of beautiful almond-shaped eyes, very similar to mine, except that he seemed on the verge of crying. I pushed the door open with a jerk. Because I pushed too hard, the door hit the wall and made a very loud noise. Everyone in the entire ward looked towards me. Fiona. I suppressed my anger and accurately called out her name, the name I had just seen in the information, in the mother's column. Is this how you treat him every day? Fiona was stunned for a moment and subconsciously retorted, who the hell are you? I'm taking care of my own child. What's it to you? Of course it's my business. I stared intently at her face and said word by word, he's not your child. He is my real, younger, brother. Fiona's pupils dilated instantly, but it wasn't surprise. Instead, a flash of uncontrollable ecstasy passed through, but she still cursed. The son I've raised for 18 years, you say he is your brother, just like that. Do you have any evidence? I threw the paternity test in my hand to her. She took the report and looked at it eagerly. A few minutes later, she raised her head, coughed twice, and confirmed, "So, you mean that the children of our two families were switched at birth?" I nodded and said, "That should be the case, however. Just to be on the safe side, we still need to take your hair and do a paternity test with my brother." Hearing me say this, her gaze finally left me and she looked at Kevin next to me. "My son," she shouted with tears in her eyes, "why do we need to do a test? You look exactly like your father." As she spoke, she was about to step forward and give Kevin a hug. Kevin was so frightened by her that he instinctively, despite his 1.9-meter height, hid behind me. "Kevin, aw, sis, save me quickly." I subtly reached out to steady Fiona and said, "If you're sure, then I won't waste any more time. Let's discuss this." "Fiona, discuss what?" "Discuss. I want both of my younger brothers. What compensation should I give you?" Fiona wasn't the least bit surprised. On the contrary, it was as if she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. She straightened her back, like a general about to go to war, and said bravely and energetically, "Let me tell you. I've gone through hardships to raise him until..." Before she could finish speaking, I had already handed her a black card. 5 million, the password is 6 zeros. Her words got stuck in her throat, the inexplicable momentum dissipated, and even her eyes became much clearer. She reluctantly refused. "This isn't about the money." So I took out another black card. 5 million, the password is 6 ones. She was stunned. Stunned by the money, her hand, which was originally planning to refuse, trembled slightly, and subconsciously, she wanted to take the black card. Just then, I withdrew my hand. Her eyes instantly sharpened. "What are you doing? You're not going to regret it, are you?" I shook my head. "Of course not. The money can be given to you, but it will have to wait until tomorrow after I check the surveillance." "What surveillance?" I smiled. "Of course, it's the hospital surveillance. The children of the two families were switched at birth. We definitely have to find out the reason. If it was an accident, that's okay, but if someone did it on purpose, that's the crime of child trafficking, and they will be sentenced." Fiona's body stiffened, and she forced a smile. It's been so long. Can we still find out? Otherwise, don't waste your efforts. The two children are doing well now. Why bother?" I comforted her considerately. "It's okay, it's not a bother. Our family lived in a VIP ward at that time. There are surveillance records. We just need to check them." "Oh, that's good, then I'm relieved." Although Fiona said this, cold sweat gradually oozed from her forehead, and she looked fidgety. Suddenly, she turned around in a hurry and walked out. It's almost noon. I have to go home and cook for my younger son. Lucas, you just rest. I'll come to see you when you're feeling better." "As for you," I replied, Miss Sarah, don't worry about the surveillance. Take your time to check. We'll contact each other later." With that, she picked up her bag and quickly disappeared from the door. I called my assistant and asked him to contact a private detective to investigate what happened back then. Then I called the nanny Judy and asked her to tidy up a clean room. I also sent a message to my parents, asking them to come back tonight without fail. After doing all this, I turned around to look at my two newly discovered unfortunate younger brothers. Lucas was sitting on the hospital bed, carefully sizing me up. The moment he met my gaze, he quickly looked away. As for Kevin, he looked like he was about to suffocate. I sighed. "All right, if you have anything to ask, go ahead." As soon as I finished speaking, Kevin couldn't wait and blurted out, "Sis, where did you get the $10 million black card?" I bluffed her. I said expressionlessly, "I'm rich, but I'm not stupid. She must be up to something. We have to dangle a carrot in front of her first so that she'll take action." "Oh," Kevin responded and looked at me eagerly, with an unusually coy expression. "Then, can I go home tonight?" To be honest, he has a pair of droopy-eyed dog-like eyes. Making such an expression isn't ugly. In fact, it's a bit cute, but that's for the opposite sex. As his sister, I felt nothing. I slapped him on the head and asked instead, "Then where else do you want to go?" He grinned and immediately straightened his back. I waved my hand in disgust. "All right, it's none of your business. Go and play. Come back on time for the meeting tonight." He nodded, took a look at the person on the hospital bed, and turned to leave. The noisy ward suddenly fell silent. I walked to the bedside and rearranged the things that had been rummaged through by Lucas. He was very quiet, and I didn't say anything for a while. Regarding this younger brother who appeared out of the blue, I felt responsible and concerned, but I really wasn't familiar with him. Fortunately, I have a unique skill in interpersonal communication. I've been using it since I was a child and have never failed. I took out a black card and held it in front of him. 5 million. The password is 6 sixes. I specifically added, this time it's real. Lucas was stunned for a moment and quickly waved his hands. No, 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 Miss Sarah, I can't. I interrupted him. Wrong. He looked at me blankly, with a somewhat awkward expression, so I reminded him, it's not Miss Sarah, you should call me, sister. For some reason, his face turned red all of a sudden. After a long while, he stammered, sister. I nodded in satisfaction and then asked, are you feeling better? He replied shyly, it's not a big problem, I just had a bit of heat stroke. The doctor said I'm okay now. Good, then change your clothes, come out with me this afternoon. He didn't ask what we were going to do, just nodded slightly. Okay, how should I put it? Compared with Kevin, he was really overly well behaved. Thinking that this might have been formed by being deliberately suppressed by others, I couldn't help but decide to add some more bonus to the detective and the lawyer. As for now, there are ways to raise a stupid younger brother. And there are ways to raise a well-behaved younger brother. I coughed twice and said seriously, listen up, next, I'm going to teach you the most important lesson in integrating into the family. Lucas immediately tensed up. What is it? I forcefully stuffed the black card into his hand and said with a smile, of course it's spending money. Don't underestimate spending money. The quickest way to understand a person is to see where they spend their money. I first took Lucas to a beauty salon and trimmed his slightly messy hair, making it look fresh and clean. After lunch, we came to the shopping mall together. My request was simple, just spend all the money on the card, but Lucas opened his eyes wide in surprise and quickly refused. I can't spend that much. I smiled. You're not allowed to go home until you spend it all. He compromised. Okay, I'll try. So, for the next 2 hours, I watched him keep repeating the same set of reactions. Selecting, asking the price, his pupils dilating in shock, turning to look at me, and then gritting his teeth to buy. I really wanted to laugh. I could tell that he was really trying his best. Even so, he still hadn't spent even 1/10 of the money on the card. There was no way around it. He only picked things that weren't very expensive. The total cost of his mobile phone, computer, and tablet was less than $200,000. The few clothes he picked were only $10,000 or $20,000 each. And the other miscellaneous items were negligible. To sum it up, he spent a little money bravely and generously. It wasn't until we passed a jewelry store that he suddenly stopped. In the square glass case in the center of the store, there was an exquisite emerald camellia brooch. Price, $3.68 million. Lucas paused and then turned and walked in. He took out the black card and pointed to the brooch. A few minutes later, the brooch was taken out, placed in a beautiful box, and handed to me. Sister, he called out, looking a bit embarrassed. This is for you. I was stunned for a moment and didn't say anything. Touched, not really, soft-hearted. Well, I was. People don't become a harmonious family just because of blood relations. It also requires responsibilities such as respect, understanding, and help that cannot be shirked, as well as sticky feelings such as being soft-hearted, showing favoritism, and caring. I thought that Lucas would be a good family member. So I took the brooch and pinned it to my left front lapel. The emerald was bright and rich, and it matched the black dress I was wearing today very well. I raised my hand and ruffled his hair. Thank you, I like it very much. The tips of his ears turned bright red instantly, and he turned his head away, saying in a flustered manner, I'll go and pick out some gifts for the others in the family. I raised my eyebrows and grabbed him. All right, it's not the new year or a time to visit relatives. There's no such thing as a junior giving gifts when they first meet. Come on, I'll take you to buy some expensive things. I took him directly to customize several suits, and then picked out several sets of casual daily outfits and shoes. In no time, the remaining money was spent clean. As the saying goes, clothes make the man. In just a few hours, I had transformed Lucas from a poor little white flower into a noble young master. Of course, it would be even better if he were more confident. I took him back home by car. As we passed through the gate, he suddenly grabbed my wrist tightly. I turned my head in surprise, and he quickly let go, his eyelashes quivering slightly. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. Anyway, it wasn't a big deal. I simply held his hand back and comforted him. It's okay, you'll get used to it. He lowered his head, looking at our intertwined hands, and softly responded, unlike the touching reunions described in most novels. My family's reaction to the baby swapping incident was relatively watery. Of course, this is because my family members are inherently emotionally reserved. They tend to solve problems rather than express emotions. Since I can remember, my mother has always been calm and unhurried, while my father has always been resolute and serious. I'm probably a combination of the two of them. As for Kevin, well, he's been a crybaby since he was a child. The kind who cried for 3 days after accidentally stepping on and killing a snail he caught from the garden. However, although their emotions seemed not to fluctuate much, the material treatment was top-notch, which was enough to show the degree of attention. At the dinner table, my mother chatted softly with Lucas about college for a while and gave him the contact information of several professors in related majors, telling him to consult them if he had any questions. My father was much more straightforward. He directly handed Lucas the certificates of several properties and incidentally gave him several luxury cars. Then he directly announced that a welcome-back banquet would be held for Lucas next month, and Kevin's status would be changed to adopted son. It might sound a bit heartless, but at least they didn't drive Kevin away, nor wrong Lucas. It was a relatively fair decision. Neither of them had any objections, and so Lucas moved in, coincidentally. Both of them were on summer vacation, and they saw each other every day, so the next month entered an awkward adaptation period. Well, it was only awkward for Kevin. Lucas had a good attitude and greeted Kevin politely every time they met. However, Kevin, who was extremely familiar with everyone, became much more silent. He seemed not to know what attitude to take towards Lucas. After all, in fact, he could be regarded as the only beneficiary of this accident, so within a few days, under the pretext of having fun, he fled to Bali for a vacation with a few friends. Incidentally, a few days after he left, the investigation of Fiona came to an end. She was originally a nurse in the hospital. She deliberately swapped the two children in an attempt to extort money. The hospital even found the original baby's wristband, which clearly stated, son of Kathy, so the evidence was conclusive. Under the dual effects of money and lawyers, she was sentenced to 6 years in prison. As for her husband and the brat she gave birth to later, although they escaped prison, they offended my family and wouldn't have an easy time. The whole process was surprisingly smooth. As if someone had handed the evidence to me, I sent the handling results to everyone in the family. Everyone's reaction was not strong. Kevin had only met her once. Although he was her biological son, she treated him as a tool for making money. Lucas had lived with her day and night, but because of their blood relationship, she beat and scolded him at will and treated him like a servant. She only cared about herself from beginning to end. Naturally, no one would care about her when disaster struck. Although Kevin was in Bali, he didn't miss a single day of news, either showing off the sea fish he caught or crazily sending me colorful shells he picked up. After about half a month, he made a video call to me. When the video was connected, a sunny and handsome face appeared. He was leaning against the balcony of the hotel, with the sparkling sea behind him. Sis, can you tell if there's any change in me? Looking at his 8 big white teeth, I commented, yes. The change from a golden retriever to a German shepherd. Ah, I'm not that dark. He mumbled discontentedly, it must be the dim light. I paid great attention to sun protection. I smiled and asked, when are you going to come back? He turned his head away and replied vaguely, in a few more days. Okay, just come back before the banquet. I didn't urge him, just patiently reminded him a few words. If you feel awkward, after the school starts, stagger the time a little, and you won't meet him many times. Don't think too much, you're still a member of the family. Everything will be as usual. He listened quietly and didn't speak for a long time. The sea breeze blew the broken hair on his forehead, revealing a pair of amber dog-like eyes, looking soft and moist. Sis, he asked in a low voice, am I useless? Although I didn't know how the topic jumped to this point, there seemed to be no logic in it, but based on my years of experience, I knew he was about to cry. Almost reflexively, I said, of course not. Why would you think so? Because... He lowered his eyelids. My logic doesn't work anymore. There are really people who are smarter and more excellent than me, and even have the same sister as me. He lowered his head, not knowing if he was asking me or himself. What should I do? I thought. This was the loophole in that logic. No matter how many gorgeous values the outside world attaches to a person, as long as they don't discover their own value, they will never experience true success. Kevin had huddled under my light for too long, so much so that he couldn't see himself. You just asked what use you are. You're good, looking, cheerful, love sports, sing well, and most importantly, I tapped the table lightly. I recently acquired an entertainment company. Kevin, I asked, have you ever considered becoming a star? He seemed to be stunned by my series of compliments. His cheeks were faintly reddish, and his eyes were bright. I don't know, can I? Just as I was about to nod, I heard a knock on the door. I put my phone down and said, "Come in." Lucas pushed the door open, holding a glass of hot milk in his hand. I was just about to go upstairs, and the nanny Judy asked me to bring the milk to you by the way. He put the milk on the table and asked politely, "Are you still busy? I'm not disturbing you, am I?" I shook my head. "No, I've almost finished dealing with things." "Okay." He smiled. "Then I'll go back to my room, sis. You should rest early too." "Wait a minute, here, take this." I called him back and took out an old book and handed it to him. "Is this the first edition of the book I mentioned last time?" He flipped through the book, his eyes full of surprise. "A friend bought it at that time, so I asked him for one." "Thank you, I'll cherish it." I waved my hand with a smile. "Okay, go to bed early. I'll ask the butler to make a bookshelf for you tomorrow." After Lucas left, I picked up my phone again and found that Kevin's expression had suddenly changed drastically. All the vulnerability and confusion disappeared without a trace, replaced by a solemn look on his face. "Sis," he gritted his teeth and said, "I'll go home tomorrow." Sure enough, early the next morning, I saw Kevin carrying a large suitcase and appearing at the door. When he saw me, he rushed up and gave me a big hug, and then was pushed away by my elbow. I warned expressionlessly, "Go, take a shower." He shivered, said, "Oh," and obediently went back to his room to take a shower. When passing by Lucas next to him, he greeted him normally. Lucas also responded with a smile. The scene looked very harmonious. Speaking of Lucas, he had adapted well in the past month, but he didn't like going out much, except for occasionally going to the university with my mother to listen to lectures and meet people. He spent all his other time at home reading. He was the kind of child who was very popular with elders, smart, studious, fair-skinned, and well-behaved. Not only those professors, but also the nannies and butlers at home liked him very much and would often pull him to chat about daily life. Kevin took a quick, battle shower, came down to have breakfast with me, and then came to the entertainment company with me. The idea of making him a star was actually a whim of mine. Even if it didn't work out, it didn't matter. All he needed was a path to prove himself. As for which path was the right one, he could try slowly, but Kevin seemed very excited, so I entrusted him to the most experienced agent in the company. After giving a few instructions, I became a hands-off boss. The agent arranged him to participate in a trial talent show. The program required 100 members to eat, live, and train together. So as soon as he got home, he was forced to leave home again. However, what I never expected was that a few days later, the first episode of the program made it to the trending searches. Kevin became a hit, in a way I never expected. #Heaven owes me a younger brother like this. Hashtag debuting for my sister for the first time. Hashtag click to see how a sister complex is formed. Hashtag searching for the mysterious sister across the internet. Hashtag looking at the constantly rising trending topics, I rarely felt a faint sense of resignation. I finally understood what it meant to have an unlucky family and to be extremely ashamed. Even my father, who was on a business trip abroad, called specifically to tease me, and the cause of this was Kevin's performance in the QA session, which was separately clipped and posted online. The program's question was, "Why did you participate in our program?" Among a bunch of answers like dreams, love, self-growth, and unique experiences, Kevin smiled brightly and said something astonishing. He said, "My sister told me to come." In addition, there were also, "Who do you admire the most?" "My sister." "Who do you thank the most?" "My sister." "Who do you appreciate the most?" "My sister." "Oh, you mean in the program?" "No one." "What goal do you plan to achieve?" "I don't have any goals," my sister said, "as long as I'm happy," and so on. Countless such answers. Of course, apart from this, the real reason he became popular was his cheerful personality, handsome face, and good singing and dancing skills, but this didn't prevent the label of sister complex from being firmly attached to him. Everyone was very curious about what kind of sister could make him talk about her all day long. Seeing that the internet was in chaos, I simply turned off the software. Out of sight, out of mind. The public's enthusiasm is limited. I estimated that they wouldn't be interested in a few days. However, the situation soon changed again. Kevin's biological father and that younger brother actually took the opportunity to do a live broadcast on the internet. They desperately accused this son they had never met, fabricated all kinds of non-existent black material about him, and nitpicked his words. They even said that the so-called sister was also made up, just to attract attention. The original, national younger brother, was instantly reversed into a white-eyed wolf, attracting countless negative comments. I rarely get angry, but the Smith family is really capable. They canned me twice. I gave them too much face. I directly asked someone to block their live broadcast room and then sued them for slander. The biological father was sentenced to 3 years in prison, and the son, because he had just turned 14, could only be sent to a juvenile detention center for 1 year of education. Although the time was short, the family was finally complete. I wished them a happy family reunion in prison. I took a photo of the judgment and posted it with the company's account, along with the caption, "The internet is not a law-free zone." After a while, Kevin, with his conspicuous account, secretly showed off below, "Alas, actually it's not a big deal. It's just that my sister protects me too much. Sunglasses, sunglasses." The people below were like parrots, all repeating the same sentence, "Yo yo yo, it's just that my sister protects me too much." Looking at the comments section, I started to think about a question. How could I send him in together? Kevin wasn't sent to prison. Not only that, he also came out of the program group. The first stage of the talent show ended, and each member was given a 2-day vacation, just in time for Lucas's welcome back banquet. The banquet hall was resplendent, with a large number of guests. My father raised his glass and officially announced Lucas's identity when a guest asked the reason. He didn't hide it at all and briefly told the truth about the baby swapping incident. After hearing this, the guests just sighed a few words and then started talking about business. This wasn't a big deal, just a strange thing. After all, as early as 5 years ago, the heir of the Duncan family had been determined to be me. As long as my status remains unchanged, then whether it's a baby swapping incident or a few more illegitimate children, it doesn't matter to others at all. After the matter was announced, the guests consciously formed several small groups in 2s and 3s. At this kind of banquet, there are the most circles. The noble ladies form one circle, the power holders form one circle, the heirs form one circle, the rich second generation, business partners, and those who are brought in without power or influence, obviously gathered in the same place, but they are extremely distinct. I took Lucas to say hello to the people in my circle. After a while, their younger brothers and sisters took the initiative to take him to chat. However, when the banquet was halfway through, I scanned the whole hall and found that Lucas wasn't in the hall. After thinking for a while, I came to the terrace. Sure enough, he was standing alone by the terrace. I walked up and patted him on the shoulder. He turned around suddenly. When he saw it was me, he relaxed again. "Sister, why are you here?" "I noticed you weren't there, so I came out to take a look," I asked. "Don't you like this kind of event?" "No," he lowered his head and said softly, "I'm just a little not used to it." I followed his gaze and saw Kevin chatting with several people. Because Kevin had recently entered the entertainment industry, many people were joking or chatting about gossip. Laughter came through the evening breeze, sounding very lively. Just then, someone suddenly said, "As expected of our Kevin, he can become popular just by participating in a program, unlike that one tonight. Who looks poor? He really lowers the grade of our banquet." The air was silent for a moment, and everyone looked at Kevin, whether to agree or refute. His reaction determined the direction of the matter. Kevin laughed, and his laughter was very cheerful. Just as the atmosphere was gradually becoming relaxed, he suddenly kicked over. "If you can't speak, get out," he cursed. "When is it your turn to judge the people in my family?" With that, he turned and left. Lucas lowered his head and watched this scene, then asked curiously, "Is that person Brother Kevin's friend?" "I don't know, he's a new face." I turned to look at him and suddenly smiled. "But I think he might know you." His pupils dilated slightly, as if in shock, or maybe just simply surprised. "Sister?" he asked softly. Are you suspecting me? Not suspecting, but certain, I said calmly. Lucas, let's talk. On a summer night. The moon is especially bright. I looked at his face. And in a trance, I had the illusion of looking in a mirror. We have the same blood flowing in our veins, similar eyebrows and eyes, and naturally, we are equally intelligent. Everything has been within his arrangements since the first time we met. He pretended to faint from heatstroke. He deliberately provoked Fiona. He handed the evidence of the swap to me. He incited that father-son pair to do a live broadcast. He instigated that person to test Kevin. He is not an ignorant and innocent little white flower. On the contrary, he is a calculating hunter. Just like at this moment, after only a moment of panic, he regained his calm. What do you want to talk about? Let's talk about. When did you know that you were swapped at birth? He tilted his head, thought carefully for a while, and shook his head. I can't remember clearly, probably 8 or 9 years old. Actually, at first, they were pretty good to me. After all, they raised me to extort money, not to make enemies. They planned to raise me for 3 to 5 years and then go to your family to ask for money. Do you know why it was 3 to 5 years? Because if the time is too short, the money they can ask for is little, and if it's too long, it's not cost effective. He sighed and said with emotion, but they were so stupid, sister, they only remembered the name and phone number. By the time they wanted the money after raising me for a few years, they couldn't find your family anymore. Your family had moved, and the phone number had also been changed. They finally got anxious. The two of them quarreled at home every day. Finally, they decided to give up on me and hurry up to have a new child. Speaking of this, he suddenly smiled, not knowing who he was laughing at. After the biological son was born, I became even more useless. If it weren't for the neighbor's report, they wouldn't even have prepared to let me go to school. But so what if I went to school? The clothes were what others didn't want. I didn't have a single cent. And I still had to do all the housework at home. Fortunately, my classmates were rich. At first, I copied homework for money, ran errands for money, and later, I played games for money. I was taken by them to sneak into internet cafes. During the breaks after playing games, I secretly looked up information about your family. Finally, I found out your address. That year, I was 14 years old. I was stunned for a moment and couldn't help asking, then why didn't you come to find us? He looked at me and didn't speak for a long time. Finally, he lowered his eyes. I came, he said. It's just that at that time, you were celebrating your younger brother's birthday. The day Lucas overheard that he was swapped at birth was the most relaxed day for him. He had been thinking since he was a child, why did his parents' attitude suddenly change so much? Had he done something wrong? Was it because he had made a very serious mistake that they were so biased and stingy that they were not even willing to give him a little bit of love? Unexpectedly, it turned out to be like this. It was actually like this, because he wasn't their biological child. He was doomed not to get their love, because he was just a tool for extorting money. He could also let go of all his expectations and hate them justifiably. This was really great. While pretending to be timid at home to look for evidence, he used various means to save money at school. Kathy, the name of his biological mother, the family was wealthy, and she was probably between 30 and 45 years old. And she had a son of the same age as him. With just these few clues, he set out to find his real family, and he actually found them. It was a photo casually taken by a student. In the bright large classroom, a woman with a clear and beautiful face stood in the center. Her eyebrows and eyes were somewhat familiar. He went to the official website to look for an introduction. The moment he saw it, his heart was pounding. It read, Professor of Classical Chinese Poetry at Peking University, Kathy. After knowing who she was exactly, the rest of the things became much simpler. Lucas pretended to be a lover of classical Chinese poetry, added the student who took the photo, and paid him to help record the class. That student was very enthusiastic. Not only did he not charge, but he also volunteered to record the class for him. He downloaded and saved those blurry videos. At night, when it was quiet, he would fall asleep listening to the lecture. Kathy was very serious about her classes. She generally didn't talk nonsense, but occasionally she would talk about herself, and among those few occasional words, the one that appeared most frequently was her daughter, the older sister who was 4 years older than him. The older sister skipped grades. The older sister won an award. The older sister went out independently. The older sister passed a very difficult exam. Although her tone was always understated, the love and pride hidden in it were obvious. Even Lucas, Listener couldn't help but yearn for it. Sister, he silently recited these two words, a smart sister, an excellent sister, a powerful sister. Would such a sister become his family member? He covered his head with the quilt and thought a little shyly, would sister, like him? It seemed that God heard his wish. A few months later, he suddenly learned in a conversation that the student who helped him record the class was actually Kathy's postgraduate student. What's more coincidental is that a few days later, he suddenly posted a status. The content was about going to the tutor's house for dinner, plus a casually taken photo. Outside the huge glass window, there was a colorful and lush garden. In the distance, there was a brick, red roof. Lucas almost clicked the download button lightning fast and then opened the navigation to search for similar pictures. There were many similar pictures, and he compared them one by one. Finally, in a photo of a villa for auction, he found an exactly similar scene. It was a very famous wealthy area in the city. 3 days later, Lucas took all his savings, put on his cleanest set of clothes, and took a bus to that place. The villa area was located in a quiet place far from the city center, with dense trees and a wide range. Fortunately, this gave him an opportunity. He found a hidden corner and, relying on his thin body, squeezed himself through the railing. Under the cover of the trees, he moved forward carefully. Halfway there, he met an ant carrying a package. An idea flashed in his mind. He pretended to be a relative of Kathy's nanny, but since it was his first time there, he got a little lost. Maybe because he looked young, the ant didn't suspect him and cheerfully showed him the way. The weather was very hot, and sweat kept flowing down his forehead, but his heart was very excited, and he seemed to have inexhaustible energy all over his body. When it was almost noon, he reached his destination. Rather than seeing people first, he actually heard laughter first, joyful, relaxed, unrestrained laughter. He looked in the direction of the laughter. Through the narrow carved fence, he saw a group of children of the same age as him playing in the garden. They were wearing soft and well-fitting clothes, with delicate and beautiful hairstyles. Everyone looked clean, the fountain was gurgling, and the flowers were fragrant. A 3-layer strawberry cream cake was placed in the center of the courtyard. The candles at the top were blooming like fireworks. The handsome teenager wearing a birthday hat blew out the candles, and everyone started dividing the cake with smiles. The teenager picked the part with the most strawberries and cut the first piece eagerly, and then handed it to the girl standing behind him attentively. It was at this moment that Lucas saw his older sister for the first time. The older sister was both like and unlike him. For some reason, although they had similar eyebrows and eyes, on her, they looked extremely cold, so much so that Lucas lingered outside the door, not daring to go forward. The change happened in the next second. After she took the cake, she suddenly smiled faintly, like the spring breeze blowing. The ice and snow melted. Then, she raised her eyes and looked towards him across the carved fence. Lucas was almost nailed to the spot. His whole body was stiff, and he didn't dare to move at all. He watched helplessly as that figure got closer and closer. She opened the door and stood in front of him, with an extra piece of cake in her hand. She asked, "Strawberry flavored, do you want to eat it?" At that moment, it was like a traveler who had walked for a long time finally saw a water source. Almost making one cry with joy, he opened his mouth, but no sound came out. There was too much. There were too many things he wanted to say. Countless words piled up in his throat, and he actually didn't know which one to say first. He wanted to say that those parents were not good to him, that they only wanted to use him to extort money, but that he was very smart and ran out by himself. He wanted to say that he had never given up, that he had searched for a long time and finally found this place. He wanted to say that he was her family member. He also wanted to call her sis. Unfortunately, someone called that name faster than him. "What are you doing there?" The teenager wearing a birthday hat walked up to him and looked at him curiously. He said, "Where did this little kid come from? Why is he so dirty?" There wasn't much malice, just curiosity, but it was cruel enough. Through those eyes, Lucas saw himself, with messy hair, a thin body, and a sweaty face. The clothes were wrinkled, and there was still fresh, tan mud sticking to the edges of his shoes. So, the meager self-esteem of the young man collapsed at this moment. The words he originally wanted to say were swallowed back into his stomach. Instead, his hand was raised high. The sun was high in the sky. In the shocked eyes of everyone, he knocked off that piece of cake. The strawberries rolled on the ground, and the white cream was covered with dust, and he lowered his head and ran very fast. as if trying to hide himself in the shadow. It's hard to describe his mood at that time, mixed with shame, inferiority, anger, grievance, unwillingness, resentment, and deep fear. He was afraid of being recognized by his long-awaited family in such an occasion. He ran, thinking almost desperately, it would be better to die. I have a very good memory. Almost instantly, I remembered the scene from that year. That day was Kevin's birthday. And there was a little boy standing outside the door. He looked at this side eagerly, looking extremely thin, as if suffering from malnutrition. I felt a little soft-hearted. I took a piece of cake and went to him, wanting to ask which family's child he was, but I didn't expect. Sorry, I told him the follow-up. Actually, I immediately beat Kevin up and also asked the butler to inquire around. But there was no news about you, so this matter was left unresolved until now. I felt sad. It turned out that when he was suffering, I had the opportunity to give him a hand, but self-pity is not my style, so I continued to ask, what about the next few years? Did you have a good life? Not bad. I lived on campus, I got good grades and had scholarships, plus a little part-time job. I could support myself. I grew up, and that family couldn't control me anymore. At most, they would ask for some money. It was considered peaceful. Suddenly, Lucas seemed to think of something and asked, do you know why I chose to pretend to faint in the mall? I was startled and shook my head. He curved his eyes and said with a smile, because it was clean there. Sister, he said, at least for the first meeting, I wanted to be clean. I looked into his eyes and didn't speak for a while. Or rather, no matter what kind of words, they seemed a bit pale at this moment. I took a deep breath and asked the last question of the night. Lucas, when you contacted that father-son pair, were you trying to take revenge on them, or were you trying to take revenge on Kevin? The smile disappeared from his face. He muttered to himself, you still protect him, after a long time, as if he had finally compromised. He said in a low voice, okay, since you want to know the answer, I'll tell you. Lucas looked at me and gave a bitter smile. He said, sister, I hate him. I hate that he stole my life, stole my family, and can still be proud of it. I hate that he can have everything I want without doing anything. I hate him. I hate that he is upright and sunny, making me look like a rat in the gutter. Why can he get everything cleanly? He turned his head away, his eyes red, but still viciously said harsh words. I just want to take revenge on him. I just want to pull him down, drag him into the mud, and make him also. His voice stopped abruptly. I hugged him. This was a hug that was a few years late. I'm sorry, I said softly. You've suffered so much all these years. This was something that should have been said when we first met, but because he behaved too sensibly and calmly, all of us ignored this matter. Maybe not used to being hugged. Lucas stiffened his arms and didn't move at all, but his voice had already dropped. What's the use of you saying these things now? No use, I said frankly, but there are a few points in what you just said that I must correct. He clenched the corner of my clothes and asked, what? I softened my voice and said one by one, you are not a rat in the gutter. You are very powerful, very smart, very hard working, and also very amazing. Put anyone in the same situation as you, and they won't do better than you. You are a flower that blooms in the mud. You don't need to be proud of us. On the contrary, we are all proud of you. I seriously repeated it again. Lucas, I'm very proud to have a younger brother like you. Warm tears dripped. And then more and more, like a humid rain, they landed on the nape of the neck and converged into a small lake. Liar, he said with a sobbing voice, you're just coaxing me. I'm not lying to you. I thought for a while and dropped a bombshell. Mom and Dad know everything you've done. He froze for a moment, and the tears flowed even more fiercely. I quickly comforted him, but they still held the welcome back banquet. Do you know why? Why? He asked. I let go of him and raised my hand to touch his head. Because we are family. In front of family, you can cry, make a scene, be angry, complain, and also make mistakes. We may quarrel many times and have different opinions, but it doesn't matter. You don't need to be perfect. No matter what you are like, we will love you. The moonlight gently spilled a silvery glow, and the atmosphere was quiet and peaceful. I was about to continue to try to ask him if he had any other knots in his heart when a sound of footsteps came. Kevin walked while saying, Sis, Dad is looking for you. Suddenly, he stopped. He looked at me and then at Lucas with red eyes. Did I come at a bad time? Lucas said expressionlessly, Sister, Seriously. Can I hit him? I smiled. You can't beat him. Let me do it. After that, our family held another family meeting. The theme of the meeting was apology. Kevin apologized to Lucas for what happened back then. Lucas apologized to Kevin for the live broadcast incident. Regarding this, Kevin felt confused. What's there to apologize for? If it weren't for their live broadcast, I wouldn't have been able to prove to everyone how amazing my sister is. Lucas didn't pretend anymore and directly sneered. With a strong offensive tone, yeah, you even need your sister's help for such a small thing. People who don't know might think you're still breastfeeding. The family meeting was a complete failure. Since then, the two of them seemed to have awakened a strange sense of competitiveness. Kevin's new drama became a huge hit, and my entertainment company was rolling in money. In a blink of an eye, Lucas developed a new patent, causing the profits of my manufacturing industry to soar. With the competition between the two younger brothers, the older sister reaped the benefits. I quickly received praise within the industry for my extremely high return on investment. I smoothly took over most of the domestic industries. If there's one thing to regret, it's probably that. It's a bit noisy when going shopping now. Kevin, I heard that your new research is about to be launched on the market. Instead of rushing to do the tests, you actually have time to go shopping. Lucas. If a big star has time to come, why wouldn't I? As for you, don't run into your fans again later and make us get surrounded and unable to leave. Kevin, I already said that last time was an accident. This time, my disguise is foolproof. Lucas, indeed, everyone who sees you will have to hold on to their wallets tightly, for fear that you'll steal from them if they're not careful. Seeing that the two of them were arguing more and more fiercely, my friend twitched the corner of his mouth and asked worriedly, "Is it okay for them to be like this?" I said calmly, "It's okay, just get used to it. We're all family." By the way, what do you think of this bag? It's nice. It goes perfectly with your coat. I think so too. I'll take it. The staff packed it for me, and I casually handed the shopping bag to the side. Kevin and Lucas looked at each other, then rushed to reach out their hands and said in unison, "Sister, let me carry it." After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinion.